All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the next episode of the CG Sit Down with your hosts Lane Hebert,
Clay Whittle,
and Andrew Preeb.
Today we're joined by a special guest,
Ashley Austin.
How are you doing today?
Very good, thanks for asking.
All right, so
we're just going to start with a little softball question.
Okay.
So where did you attend college?
Oh, that's like one of my worst questions. That's only followed worse by like, where are you from? So I have my associates in ag science from Lincoln Lane Community College in Springfield, Illinois, where I was a part of the livestock teaching team. Then I transferred to Kansas State University, where I majored in ag education. I student taught in Hiawatha, Kansas, and then I have my master's from University of Kentucky.
So you've been
Well
quite
traveled.
a few places.
A little bit of a Midwest tour.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that leads us to our next question, I guess. So where are you from?
Oh, no. I T-balled you right up for that. So I'm originally from Goshen, Indiana. I grew up on a dairy farm, so my dad milked cows for most of my childhood. He actually wanted to travel, which is not really conducive with that career, so he sold the cows when I was pretty young. Now he's just a grain farmer, so.
So, did you go, was your high school in your hometown there? Or?
It was, yeah. Not as small as Canton-Galva, definitely, but yes. And so we had an FFA chapter where I was very active in, and that's how I kind of got started in this career.
So you've been doing FFA as long as you can remember, I guess, through
Practically.
All right.
So then what brought you to Kansas?
That's a really good question. So I went to Kansas State because I just absolutely loved the ag ed department, and I thought that would give me the best quality of education at also a really good tuition rate.
Okay.
So then I had no plans of staying, and I started having nephews, so I wanted to get back closer to Indiana, where I went to Kentucky. So they gave me a full ride to be a research assistant, and I was like, oh, I'll stay in Indiana, Illinois, and then my husband got his dream job at Hedge Community College, so I was like, okay, this is happening, we're moving back to Kansas, which I'm actually very thankful for, because I think this area of Kansas is really gorgeous, which might be an unpopular opinion.
I could agree to that.
Good.
So I had a question. Did you always want to be a teacher, or was that kind of something you just thought of in college, or?
I didn't actually. I really wanted to be an ag scientist, so I wanted to work with GMOs and be in a lab. And then when I was a sophomore in high school, my ag teacher was like, you should think about being an ag teacher. It's a really good job. Every day is different. It's interesting. And after he said that, I was like, you know what, I do love this, so maybe I'll start with that. And honestly, I just never changed my mind. All through high school and college, I was like, I just want to be an ag teacher now.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I think I've taken one of your classes, and it was
different every day.
Different every day. There's always something new going on. And so how long have you been teaching?
This is my third year. So after I graduated at University of Kentucky with my grad degree, I actually started a completely different scenario from Canton-Galva. I taught my first year at a really, really large high school. There was 1,000 students from freshman to senior, and it was an urban program. So it was also different. They were starting a brand new program, and it was funded by Howard Buffett. And so he made a really large donation. We started an ag academy through the high school. So we had a school farm. We built a barn and a greenhouse and all these things. But these kids had never seen a pig before.
Yeah.
So taking an ag class was totally foreign to them. Where here, obviously, most people have some kind of idea where their food is grown.
Right. That's got to be pretty difficult to try to teach kids that have just absolutely no background of what you specialize in.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Like Andrew, yeah.
Hey. Come on, I have a pretty decent understanding of agriculture.
Absolutely.
What was it like moving to Kansas and coming to this school? Was that a big change from what you were used to back in your hometown?
Was. I was really nervous because at first I didn't think I was going to find a job. And there's nothing open. There was a job in Salina open that was for a welding teacher, and I'm certified to teach welding, but I didn't want to teach it all day long.
Yeah.
So I was actually I was reaching out to some the CEO of the National Association of Ag Educators, and I was trying to convince him to let me work for the FFA, National FFA Association, remotely. And then Canton-Galva opened up, and I was just forget it, I'm gonna apply there, let's hope I get it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was very excited, but my classes there were significantly bigger, so it's really nice here because the students are just really sweet, nice, they're very active in FFA obviously, and then it's a lot more manageable.
Right, and this is almost a perfect situation because your first year was our first year having an ag program, so you could be here from start and just help build it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a really good situation.
Because my first program that I worked at was the same. So they had never had one. I was the first ag teacher, and it's really nice because there's no bad habits, and you can kind of show what you expect out of that. And so I agree. That was a really great scenario.
Yeah. And being its first year last year with the FFA program, there was quite a bit of stuff that we did, that involved the whole school and stuff, trying to get everybody to learn about it more. And
yeah, we took off flying. We did lots of things last year, and this year has definitely It's definitely been different with like the whole virtual contest, but
Yeah.
we're still trying to make do. So
Yeah, so that was actually another question was,
I can ask that. Like,
Yeah.
what do they do? Yeah. So, on a usual year without COVID, what would you usually do?
we would definitely be gone a lot more. So lots more field trips. Our contests are usually at different schools. So like right now we're gearing up for meets judging, and that would usually be at Bueller, and we'd be gone all day. Now it's virtual, and so what we're going to do is a little bit different, and so that's harder in terms of we're not 100% sure what to expect. I don't want to get like too technical in what meats judging is, but you have to be able to look at like part of a carcass of an animal, and you have to be able to like evaluate how large is that ribeye area. And that sounds really odd, but obviously like on a screen or a picture, that's a lot harder to calculate like what that area looks like. So it is a lot different. And obviously last year, you probably remember we did that big like all school day where we pulled everyone out, talked about like what is ag and FFA, and that was really fun. So a lot less traveling. National convention this year was also virtual. Last year we got to go to Indianapolis with our officer team, except Keaton couldn't go because of football, obviously, he was preoccupied. But that's a really big one too. On the way out there, we stopped at like the headquarters for Bayer Monsanto, and we did a lot of tours as well for industry tours. Whereas this year we attempted, I don't know if you remember at the FFA meeting, to do a virtual tour of a John Deere corporation somewhere in Hutch, and that didn't go quite as well with the internet, but we're still trying.
There was quite a few issues with that one, but I mean, there's only so much you can do with stuff like that.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot throughout this year with having more online classes and stuff and trying to stay more remote. There's been a lot of technical difficulties, it seems like.
Especially with those companies who don't do that every day. And if they do something with the school, they have to just basically learn how to do it and do it that same day.
It's a lot of people's first times trying to do this stuff and trying to adapt, but...
Absolutely. So a CDE is a career development event. We also have LDEs, which are leadership development events, and then we have SAEs, which are supervised ag experience. So a CDE is anything where you learn like the technical skill in an ag class, so like meats judging. You actually learn how to place classes of meat. You also how to do things like yield grading and quality grading. So this ties into a career in terms of if you were like a meat inspector or if you worked for a place like Tyson or Cargill. So it is like a very technical skill that you learn, and then you take it to the competition level, and you can go to like district and state. So it's things like that. It's also like vet science. Vet science today we're working on practicums like how to halter a horse properly, or actually how to identify parasites. So it's something like that where you have to have some kind of knowledge base. And then, yes, I'll go with that one.
So, what CDEs do you do, or are you most interested in?
We do quite a few. So my favorites would definitely be livestock judging. That's kind of my background. That's what I had college scholarship for. We did really well this year. We ran a team of 2 sophomores, a freshman, and an 8th grader as a senior competition. So that's traditionally like senior level. And we were actually 3rd overall. It was a state contest at Beef Expo.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, and it's also the Reasons Division. So Reasons Division is where you have to look at a class for 15 minutes, place it, and then you have to write a mini speech. You usually have about 15 to 30 minutes to get that speech memorized, and then you have to present it with no note card, no like notes, anything, to your Reasons listener.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so it's pretty difficult.
Sounds kind of complicated.
Absolutely, and we were going up against teams from all over the state that had obviously like seniors, and then they also just had a lot more time to prepare, years of experience.
And were you going against like schools our size, or were they any size of school?
All over, and then some of them actually weren't even schools. They can also be like county organizations like 4-H. So a lot bigger as well.
So FFA, that's just high school, correct?
Yes, technically we allow 8th graders to be a part of it. Within our district, so we're South Central District, they are allowed to do middle school academy, and that's kind of like one overarching competition where you have to memorize like breeds, plants, grains, all kinds of things. So there are a little bit of things that like a middle schooler can do, but not to the extent of high school.
I see. So how were the numbers last year compared to this year?
Oh, that's a really good question. Oh, I need to talk to Brecken about that one. She's our secretary. I was very excited. Last year, we were in our mid to upper 30s, and we've pretty much stayed very consistent with that. Our goal is to be next year in like the low 40s, so that's pretty good. But yes, we're always trying to grow as well.
I know there's a couple people in that 8th grade class that are pretty into agriculture, so I think you might be able to grow pretty well there.
Absolutely.
So what kind of, is there different offices and stuff included in FFA then?
Yes, there is. So we have a pretty traditional officer committee right now. You can kind of change that as well. So like there's some, like the national organization and then some schools as well will have like one president and they'll have multiple vice presidents.
Yeah.
However, we have the traditional versions where it's like president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, reporter, sentinel. And then we actually, in FFA, you have this thing called national chapter. Hope I didn't just bump that too much. So national chapter is like your ranking across other chapters in the state and then the country. So like this year we were silver, which is obviously very good, and that's like all across the state. But you have committees for that. It's kind of like technically confusing. So we actually have committee chairs as well. So like there's somebody in charge of strengthening ag committee, and that is in charge of like 4th grade ag day, things like that.
Yeah.
So we also have 3 additional committee chairs on our leadership team that are not technically officers.
All right. Sounds like there's quite a bit of responsibility that you have to take in.
Yeah, definitely. It feels like every week we have something going on.
Yeah. It was pretty busy last year, just being in the class, like looking at all the stuff that you guys have to.
There's always something going on.
Yes.
Yeah, stays pretty busy. So with FFA, is there like an overall goal that everyone's supposed to learn, or is it kind of different for everybody?
That's like such a good question. So I think it needs to be very individualized to the person, and my goal is to make sure that everyone ends like out of my program knowing what kind of career they want to go into.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you two remember last year we had to do like your introduction to SAEs, and you had to look into a career and say like, okay, where can I go to school for this? What certification would I need? What town do I want to live in? Do I need to take out a loan, or can I get a part-time job to pay for that schooling or certification? So that's really important. So there's not necessarily like a one goal, but we do have goals like 100% SAE participation. So an SAE, that's supervised ag experience, it's kind of like a job of sorts. Now it can be one where you maybe work for a local rancher. So we actually have multiple FFA members that work for your grandpa. And that's what they do. So they track their hours, they say what they do, they learn a lot obviously. And then there's some that might do a school-based enterprise. So we actually just got into 2 hydroponic systems into my classroom, and we're gonna start growing like strawberries, herbs, lettuce, things like that, and then hopefully we can process that into like a strawberry jam or something like that in food science.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, so each person has something that's very individualized to them. So whatever your goal is, we try and find a way to tie that into agriculture. So it might be food science, it might be that you want to start your own cow herd, so how can we help you with that? Maybe you need to find a little 4-H loan to take out, things like that. So it's very individualized, but the main goal is to find an area of career that you want, and we hope it's within agriculture because there's a lot of job openings in our industry.
Right.
So how many classes do you teach here?
That's a good question. This year it'd be 7. But there are some overlaps with that. Like I teach 2 ag sciences. So ag science is the intro level class for high school, and that's a little bit about all the areas of ag. Then we're teaching animal science every year. This year we have advanced animal science. So that one looks into like we're dissecting fetal pigs pretty shortly, things like that. Plant and soil science, food science, ag leadership. There's ag business next year. Obviously 8th graders. So a little bit of everything. Yeah.
Is there one that you that interests you the most out of all those, or do you like them all just about the same?
That's a good question. I would probably say animal science. That's probably a little bit more my background. I really like plant and soil science as well, and then food science I've never taught before this year, but I'm having a lot of fun. We actually just did a wheat unit where we talked about the different types of wheat, and we made bread. So like there's certain types of wheat that are actually just for noodles, but we actually made bread out of it to see like how that texture changes. It was totally gross, but it was really fun.
All right.
I was thinking about asking if there's any classes that you like dread teaching. I feel like that would be a very good question to ask, because then you'd be just talking down in a class that you do, and I don't think anybody would be very happy
I
with
will
that.
definitely give the generic answer of I love all my classes.
Right.
Well, not quite 20. That's not quite 15 minutes.
Well, right. So, we can just...
Yeah, we shoot for 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah,
so we could probably bring it to a close.
Is there anything you want to add?
Ooh.
We can ask that. We can ask if there's anything you want to put out there for like people thinking about joining FFA or.
You can turn it into like a 1 minute of like recruiting.
That sounds good. Okay.
So, all right, I'll ask that. All right. Well, I think we've learned quite a bit about FFA today and all the classes you teach. I guess we could finish it up by asking if there's anything you'd like to say to people thinking about or maybe wanting to join FFA.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great one. I think what we get a lot of, and we talk about within my classes, that just because you don't think agriculture is for you doesn't mean you shouldn't try to take an ag class or join FFA. There are lots of people who join and it's not what they expected.
Yeah.
And also it's kind of, a lot of those people will say, oh, I thought it was all about like tractors or production farming. And while we do sometimes talk about those things, it's a lot more than that as well. So it's things like we include math or graphic design into things. So whatever you're interested, just try taking an ag class, see it might be for you. There's lots of people out there who have like a graphic design degree and they realize they want to go work for an ag company because they're more likely to keep their job in the long run, because ag companies rarely go out of business because everyone has to eat at least 3 times a day.
Yeah.
So I always try and make everyone take an ag class. Sometimes the 8th graders join my class and they're like, oh, I was forced to take this class, but by the end of it they're like, oh, I'm definitely taking this next year.
Yeah.
So come into it with an open mind. I think that'd probably be my biggest one, and then probably get as active as you can. I think a lot of people join and they'll like come to the local chapter meetings, but if you don't try and join a competitive team or take field trips, you don't gain as much from it. So that's not just FFA either. I think that's probably anything that high school offers you. Just try and be as active as possible.
Yeah, I could probably attest to that because I didn't see too much in FFA, and then last year when we went to the farm show in Kansas City, I had a blast there. And
that was a really fun trip.
Yeah.
You got to see some of that really cool equipment, and like some of that too is just like technological advances that you don't get to see every day. But absolutely, that was a really fun trip.
Yeah, you'd have to test out a cow skill, right?
Hey, we're not going into that.
All right. Well, it was great having you on. Pleasure having you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yep. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
We would like to thank the generous sponsors of the CG Media Department. First is HCI. For all your cable, phone, and internet needs, go see our friends at HCI at 211 South Main Street, Galva, Kansas. Again, thank you for your generous support. Next is Canton Lockers. Go see Gentleman Joe at Canton Lockers, located at 131 North Main Street, Canton, Kansas. Also, the State Bank of Canton, your hometown bank for over 125 years. Thank you, State Bank of Canton. Next, we'd like to thank Tony Weedle at Ag 360 for his support of the media department. Ag 360 for all your insurance needs from farm, home, and even life insurance. Thank you to all our sponsors.